Well, what do you know?
All right, go for it.
What is it? It's Friday. We're back at it. We're back at it strong enough right now because we have a lot of information to make a decision on what to main as DPS is in 9.2. Did you decide?
Luckily, I'm very close, but I have a couple of very tight picks, and we're gonna go into
tight.
all of them. Yeah, when it's tight, it's better, man. It feels okay. But speaking what's tight and what works really well.
I mean, listen, you cannot have a main without having your main add-ons to play with. And what better way to get your add-ons than through CurseForge? Listen, CurseForge, why are you laughing, man? CurseForge is the best possible app out there for managing your add-ons, for getting new add-ons in the mix. Like recently they had another update. I think they do updates and quality of life fixes to the app on a weekly basis by now. The thing is, you can organize them all however you want. They're like, if you remember the old Twitch app, you know, the categories were all over the place. This time around, at least the categories are all alphabetical and shit. Yes.
And tight.
And tight as well, indeed. Also, the fact that right now they are supporting all of the add-on creators, you know, having a cut of the revenue share to them is basically a win-win situation for everybody. The app is super smooth, no problem whatsoever. There was some issues in the past, you know, some stupid rumors or whatever. Time has proven.
Long time ago, though.
Yeah, it was like, it's a year now, right? It's all a year since this happened.
We never had those issues, though.
No, but that's what I'm saying. So time has proven the app is stable. There's no sneaky business going around. We use it like every day, updating the add-ons and stuff. So if you like the add-ons that we use in the videos and stuff and want to have them all with one click, just check the link in the description after you watch the video. It's very important you watch the video, and then you can get some cool add-ons as well. Now, thank you, CurseForge, for sponsoring the video, and let's decide on mains for 9.2 DPS style. Let's go.
All right.
So, Affliction Warlock is the first on the list. So I'm gonna start it off. I am very attracted to the Warlock spec. So for me, I'll definitely have it in an alt or potential alt. It's not gonna be a main. How about you?
The same here. I've mained Warlock in the first year of BFA. What was it? Old year? Was it?
Wasn't you playing Mistweaver back then or something?
No. I was Affliction, and I've played a little bit of Mistweaver because we needed a healer.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see myself playing a Warlock. I have played Hunter this tier, which is currently my current main. And I definitely see myself playing Warlock. I just feel like it's missing a little bit of touch. For me, it's a potential alt.
Okay,
Affliction.
so potential alt over here. Yeah, the same here for me. Now, if we are we're gonna get to the other Warlock specs as well. Now, Arms Warrior is a whole different story. I think for both of us, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. Arms Warrior is, first of all, super fun to play, if you like the playstyle, obviously. It was meta, grounded. I don't know if it's gonna retain its position, what is that word? Position as meta. But regardless of that, we were never ones to play the meta specs necessarily. I mean, I played Feral in first season, he played Survival now, and then has last season. Granted, I played Sub, but I didn't know it was gonna become meta. Regardless, I think I can speak for both of us, but you're gonna have your piece that this is a definitely in the main category.
Well, that's what I want to ask, Mr. Marcelian. What is the difference between potential main and alt?
Potential main and alt.
Explain to the people.
Yeah, this is the thing. So the decision will be made based on things that could happen in you know, the tuning phases that are still to come, right? Now when we're looking at the mains, we're like, okay, at this point, I'm definitely choosing between what is in the main. Potential main is if something happens like really bad to my mains and something good to the potential mains, then they're gonna go to the switcheroo. So this is.
Okay. Then can you put Affliction in potential main then?
Potential main.
Yeah, it's Affliction and Assassination as well. We'll get to that, but yeah, in that case, Arms for me is also a main because one of the biggest contenders right now for me is between Hunter and Warrior, and I've played Survival right now, well, mostly Survival and Arms, but I'm always gonna dabble into Fury. So Arms is definitely there, not because it is necessarily strong. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be strong at 9.2 as it is now. That's not the point. The point is I love Warrior and I love playing Prod in dungeons. So if I'm going to be progressing through the raid with Arms, I'm obviously going to have my little fun in dungeons as well. So yeah, Arms for me is definitely a main candidate.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Assassination Rogue. You can start it off.
Assassination Rogue, yes. I've had my eyes on Assassination Rogue for years. As a raid spec, I just find it. I know it's a little bit dumb in single target. I get it, and that's not particularly something that I'm excited about.
Dumb.
But I always find it a fascinating spec to play in a raid. Rogue in general, but mostly Assassination. So for me, Assassination is a potential main. I haven't leveled my Rogue yet, but it's always there on the radar for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of the same story here. We're gonna get into the rogue specs more onto the sub and outlaw part, but I can definitely see Assassination being also a potential main in 9.2. The reason is, okay, as dumb as you would think it would be in a single target, not all raids have single target, and Assassination is way better in cleave than sub, for example. That's one thing, and I don't know if you know all the tier sets, dude, but some of the things that are come.
Okay, that's the cherry on top of the cake. But for me, what interests me is the core fantasy, and I find it really enticing to be at the back of the boss and just stabbing and poisoning him constantly, and building that damage up. That's what attracts me towards Affliction and Assassination, because they kind of have a similar mindset. You want to build up that damage over time and then just like slap him every now and again.
And it's really cool. This is the thing about Assassination as well, similar to Feral also. When you have like a lot of uptime requirement as a melee in specific fights, specs like these have are not punished as often because they're relying so much on their ticking damage. So
yeah, that's also really good.
All right, now the next spec here. Let me just put it over here.
All right,
are you touching Boomkin?
We know.
On, man.
Yes, I will be talking about Boomkin a little bit because Boomkin has a similar feel to me as Affliction in terms of the potential damage that it can do. I'm not a fan of Venthyr Boomkins. Okay. Hey, listen, man. If I play Boomkin, you better believe it. I'm gonna be a fat chicken there, and I'm gonna take a lot of your screen, my hitbox, and if you play a range, I'm gonna come close in front of you so you can see my little flappy hands. The thing with Boomkin, like I'm not a fan of the Venthyr Boomkins. I think it's a stupid mechanic, and it's not fun to go into a class where I'm expected to be #1 DPS on all of the single target fights. That's not particularly entertaining for me, and it's not a challenge that I need to overcome. But in terms of a simple caster, if New Moon becomes like a really like the go-to, because I find it just fascinating to slap the target with big moons. For me, balance is a potential main. Potential main in the sense that it needs a couple of things for me to really consider it as a caster. I've tried it multiple times in 9.0 and 9.1 to raid with it and see exactly how I would get to get into the spec, but I could never really, try to get it. And I would never play it as an ult, so it's a potential main for me. But it would need probably at the bottom list of the potential.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it right at the bottom. I did say I'm gonna give it one more chance, so who knows? Maybe I'm gonna fall in love with it. Not a chance. All right, Arcane Mage, baby. This is another thing because we can talk about the mage class specifically, but this is a spec that I don't know. I'm not going to touch, maybe as a potential alt, but I really, when it comes to the mage specs, I have other preferences. I don't know about you, because we have to make it like some sort of common ground here.
Similar story? Similar story with Boomkin, but I feel like it's missing. I find that hard to consider Arcane Mage right now. If I would ever have to main a caster right now, it would probably be Warlock. Or
Boomkin is not a caster, right? I knew it. I know it's just a fat chicken who flops his fucking wings and gets moons out of feathers.
Hey man, until it lays eggs.
It lays eggs as well, and those explode. So not touching Arcane then?
Not touching.
Not touching Arcane. How about Beast Mastery?
Beast Mastery is going to be a potential alt for me.
Potential alt. I can definitely see it. I haven't played my Hunter in a while.
If I'm going to main Hunter, I'm obviously gonna main survival, and my alt is gonna be Marksman or BM, but I prefer usually Marksman in raids at the very least. And if I'm going to alt Hunter, then BM is definitely a potential alt.
For sure. I mean, it happens
as an
this season as well.
Yeah, I've played BM here and there.
Okay, what about the Demo Warlock? This is something I've never touched, but I am very interested in.
This is, for me, it's a potential main in front of Affliction. I feel like it's a more... As far as Warlock goes, it's a more interesting spec than Affliction, at least at the moment, because of the fantasy of it. I am still waiting for that day when they will fucking make that nether portal actually be viable, or at least competitive to assist that where you would actually pick it. Because right now, on paper, it does damage, but it has a lot of downsides and risks to the playstyle where you are not really necessarily rewarded enough to take those chances, to take those risks. But in terms of fantasy, I fell in love with Warlock back in WoD. You obviously had Metamorphosis back then before they added Demon Hunters, but you also had the big fat demons, man. You had the Doomguard as a permanent pet, you had the Infernal as a permanent pet, and that made me feel like a master of demons. Granted, they went in Legion with and the similar playstyle right now where you just have an army of demons, and that's kind of cool.
It is cool.
But and the Tyrant is nice, but I really feel like I want those demon commanders to be under my thrall, and I can just order them to like smack shit up.
Under your thrall? What about Jaina?
But that's where I stand with Demo. It's close to becoming something that I can consider a main.
Cool. And Destro, we also have to keep Destro.
Same there. Destro is just stupid fun. Destro is like the Destro is the fury of Warlock. It's fun. It's simple. It's sometimes I'm just fucking tired. I cannot be asked. I just want to slap some big ass chaos bolts, and I don't give a fuck. Plus, if there's like a Clee fight, you better believe Warlock is Destro's gonna freaking smash.
I mean, for me, out of the three Warlock specs, the potential main would still be Affliction, definitely. So I think it's a really good positioning here. I would definitely try Destro for arenas or something like that. Although Affliction is still really good, and Demo is something I'm really scared of, and that's probably
Demo is a lot simpler than you think. It just punishes you because you have to hardcast a lot. But the thing is, that's the beauty of Warlock, man. There's always a fun spec that you can try out, and I mean it's all range. You don't really lose a lot by off specking. So I always felt really comfortable playing Warlock, and it would be very hard for me to get bored. It's just that with our current way of playing WoW, where we do dungeons as well, I kind of have to like alt roll, tank or heal or whatever. So maining a pure DPS is kind of hard.
It is hard. Okay, now for Fire Mage, this is definitely an alt. For me at least, and if you're gonna talk about the Frost in a second, what do you see Fire Mage? Let's go from here.
For me, Fire Mage is not touching at the moment. If I'm gonna give any credit to any mage spec right now, it would be Arcane and Frost. Frost is nice, but again, it's a clearly over the top meta spec right now, which doesn't necessarily appeal to me.
Deserved, man.
I mean, sure, fair enough, man. It's fun, but for me, with the Frost spec, that if I would main it in raid, I need Glacial Spike.
All right, so you would not touch Fire. Okay,
I would not touch Fire.
We're gonna get to Frost in a second as well. Now, Fire for me retains its super fun and explosive playstyle. Explosive, it's a Fire Mage.
It's blasted.
No, but seriously, it definitely, and the tier set looks also pretty awesome. It could, I mean, this is the thing, right? I put it in an alt because Frost Mage will definitely be, for me, a very big contender for the main. I've planned this for 9.1 as well.
Pump that bad boy there, man.
Yeah, since you said you like won't touch Fire, and maybe you don't see necessarily Frost over there. I think I can take the reins here, because Frost for me is definitely on.
Oh hell yeah, we're not gonna compromise on this. Whatever you feel like you go for it.
I mean, this is the thing, right? I would main Frost, and obviously if I do main it, then I would play my Fire Mage as an alt, in keys and whatnot. I love both specs, but I kind of always digged Frost more because it was a little bit more consistent.
At right now, if I'm gonna have my say on it, for Frost, for me would be a potential main, because it's just like Boomy, it feels like it's missing something.
All right, so
I like that diversity in playstyle, because right now it feels like I don't know how it would function in 9.2 clearly, because we don't have everything tested. We don't have the final iteration of all the legendaries and all the builds.
There's still tuning to be done, yeah.
But for me, Frost, I really enjoyed Glacial Spike in single target, and I really enjoyed Freezing Rain in AoE, and those were how I had the most amount of fun. I feel like Thermal Void, although interesting, it's a very boring playstyle. Sure, you get Icy Veins for a long time, and that's fun every now and again, but if I had to main that, I would probably get bored of Frost, which is why it's not a main consider. But if it gets that little oomph, that little interesting variety in its playstyle, it can be bumped to a main for me.
Nice. Okay, Marksman, still in the hunter category.
Marksman.
Potential alt.
Marksman is, okay, I have to really think about it. It would have to be potential alt as well with BM because I don't really discriminate between the two. It's just fun off specs for me as a hunter main currently. I definitely had one of the most amount of fun with Marksman. If I wasn't such a big survival fanboy, I would definitely be playing Marksman instead in Raid because it's just really fun to like slap shit from like 40 to 50 yards away from the target and see everybody. And I'm not kidding, man. If you play Marksman on Sylvanas, you laugh your ass off being outside of her all of the ranges. You outrange everything.
I've seen them, Marksman.
And that's a cool little fantasy that I kind of like when I main a spec. I want to feel like, okay, they're taking that spec fantasy to the next level. Marksman, you just have the most amount of range out of everybody. You just stay at a safe distance because your main damage sources will be a hard casted aim shots, right? So you're kind of dependent on nailing that. And the amount of time that you will probably have to cancel aim shot is very frustrating. So having that extra range really works for me. And it's very close to becoming an alt.
Okay. Well, again, if you do decide in the end that survival is still gonna be the thing, then obviously these are
the thing is, it depends exactly where it's going to be, where survival is going to end up. Either it's a main or an alt.
All right, Outlaw Rogue. Now I can see this in the category of a potential alt for me, but I can see it for you as well. Since if Assassination will be a potential main. I don't see if Outlaw would be. Yeah, I would
definitely off spec. So potential alt for me. I mean, I like Outlaw probably more than you like it, but you like Rogue more than I like it. So it's kind of like a weird dynamic there. I feel like the Buccaneer, the pirate theme fits really well into WoW and into Rogue because Rogues, kind of encompass that aspect of it as well. And I feel like Rogue as a melee DPS in terms of fantasy is a really well-rounded class where you have the quote ninja spec, which is sub, where you're really sneaky, really subtlety.
From the shadows.
Assassination, where you just get the most amount of tools to kill the target, and Outlaw, where you just, I don't give a fuck about rules, I'm just gonna shoot my pistol in your face and between your eyes, point blank. I feel that's kind of cool when you're fighting in a melee and you just put out a pistol to the target. It's like, yeah, fuck your sword fight, man. Pow, pow.
Now, I made my points regarding Outlaw. It's still a potential main, and I'm gonna go into the fantasy of it because I was never a big fan of the changing to it. But let's not open that can of worms. Survival here.
Speaking of can of worms, I know there are people that are like, man, I wish my survival was the old range survival with black arrows. Like, all right, listen, I get you, man. But if you remember, that was once, I think in Legion it was Marksman in the Marksman talent tree as well. Survival is still my main currently, and it's looking like it's going to be a strong contender for the main in the next patch because I find it a very challenging spec. It's really struggling in raid as opposed to other specs. If you take like point by point comparison with like equal skill level and equal gear, survival is going to really suffer in pure single target. So I really hope that they address that. But the reason why I'm considering maining something other than survival in 9.2 is because they don't seem to be addressing the single target. They're adding more bombs playstyle, which is kind of amazing, but survival has so many playstyles that it can do, and it's fun. You can have the poison playstyle, you can have the butchery playstyle, which is not a thing, and not to mention Chakram is like a dead talent that I don't think it has ever been used, at least not in the last couple of years. So that's why I'm a little bit iffy on survival, but it's a very safe pick for me. I love the spec, and in dungeons it's rocket.
It's great. It's great. I mean, I haven't played survival since like 8.1 or something. Cannot argue there. But if I'm going to touch my hunter once again, it's definitely going to be survival. Okay. Shaman time, elemental.
For me, it's the same argument as all the other potential mains. It's one of the casters that I've mained before.
Question is it in front?
Oh,
it
is in front of Boomy.
Is it in front of Assassination?
It's in front of Affliction.
Oh my God, man!
For me, it's a very well-designed range spec. It looks to be really fun. Enhancement Shaman in general is a very fun class to begin with. It has one of the most amazing effects and everything, and it's a very solid spec right now to begin with. It's not in the spotlight because you have Frostmage and Boomies in the spotlight right now, but it is very close to the spotlight. So it's Shaman, so it's always gonna have a special place in my heart.
And that also has to translate into Enhancement, I figure.
Obviously, I would always off-spec Enhancement.
You mained it in 9.
Yes, I've mained it. So for me, Enhancement is a potential alt.
The changes to it. I mean, it can basically become the thing it's supposed to become.
It could be. I'm holding skepticism to this one because I don't remember Enhancement being strong in the last couple of years at all. It's
time.
It's similar to survival, except that it's lacking a little bit more damage, I feel.
Okay.
And yeah, it's
So we keep it in potential.
potential alt for me. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, if I am going to play Shaman, this is definitely going to be as an alt, and Enhancement is going to be the first pick for sure. Now, Feral Druid. So Feral Druid, I mained it in 9.0. I absolutely love it. I still love the spec. What happens in 9.2 with the spec, they basically are finally addressing one of the core issues of Feral, which is the 3-minute Berserk cooldown, which the 2-piece will reduce, and the burst AoE. Feral has the potential to become one of the meta specs in 9.2 in all content. Granted, they fixed some of the numbers. Now, because of that, but not only that, for me, this is very closely to a main talk here, but I will put it in an alt just to be safe, because it's something that I have other stronger opinions. Where do you stand on this? Can you see it?
Feral
With the changes. With the tier set bonuses.
That doesn't do it for me. I feel like I don't want to decide on a main based on tier sets. For me, the core spec has to stand on its own.
What is wrong with the core spec, Flame?
I don't like the core spec. It has very basic animations. The sound effects are very.
It's a Feral Druid. What do you want?
And I don't.
Happy fucking fat chicken. That's super.
Hey
flashy.
man, you can see whatever you want about Boomkin. Boomkin has some animations. I always like the concept of Feral Druid, and I kind of like the thought process behind it a little, like in the older variations, where it relied a little bit more on properly thinking about your bleeds. And obviously you think about them right now, it's not like it's a brain dead spec,
no,
but
not
I feel
at all.
I feel like there's something missing with Feral. I'm not interested in Druid at all at the moment, because if I would play Feral, I would like to be interested in the other specs. And Boom is already lacking something. Feral is lacking a little bit more. So for me, Feral would be a lot lower.
It would be not touching?
Yeah, probably right.
Man, get the fuck out of here, man. What about Frost Decay?
Frost Decay, I thought about Decay for a while. It's a potential alt for me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Frost Decay is a very old spec. It has received almost nothing new. I haven't heard of anything added to Frost except the the double legendaries and all of that in the tier sets, which again, so what am I gonna do until I get those, right? I'm just gonna play the very same spec I've played for like 3 years. It's not enticing. They need to really think about Frost Decay and actually make some changes, make it feel like it's a 2021 spec, because it plays the same as in 2019 or whatever. 2018.
But what about Fury?
No, Fury is a main for sure.
It's up there with arms, right?
Yeah, I see no reason why I wouldn't be able to swap it.
It's gonna be a hard decision. It's like, I'm
gonna be playing both. Like if on this fight, like I cannot discriminate between the two. I'm leaning a little bit more towards arms always, but I cannot really discriminate between the two. Warrior is always one of my closest loved specs, classes that is. And if there's a fight where arms is better, I'm probably gonna play arms on that. Where Fury is better, I'm gonna be playing Fury on that. Plus, with the fact that you can just swap covenants right now, it's no longer a restriction, because it was a restriction in 9.1. Then I don't see any downsides in maining either of the two. They have pretty similar stats. Getting a second weapon for Fury might be a little bit tougher than it is for arms, so we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, Havoc, Demon Hunter.
Havoc, Demon Hunter. It's definitely an alt.
Definitely an alt.
There's a very good chance. I always considered Havoc as being a potential main.
I agree.
I just feel like, because if I'm ever going to main a DPS that has an off spec as a tank, I need to like that off spec, and unfortunately Vengeance doesn't do it for me just yet.
Oh, I love Vengeance.
Which doesn't seem it's gonna change very much, but Havoc on its own right looks like it's a much better spec than it was in BFA, which was something that I had problems with. And it's a very well designed spec. Like, I cannot say anything else.
I mean, yeah, it's the mobility, it's the damage, it's the consistency. I mean, you cannot talk pretty badly about it. I remember in BFA we complained a lot about Havoc because it was the least punished out of all of the DPS specs. Right now it's not the same. It's still pretty good, but things like blur have been reduced. The darkness, granted, is still pretty strong and very useful. And I feel like it's the momentum thing still the momentum build still a thing.
Yes, it is still a thing. At least in AoE, it's the best played spec.
That's also
right
good.
now. I still feel like at the beginning of 9.1.5 and 9.1 to begin with, you had two viable playstyles, which was really cool because we haven't had that on Havoc in a very long time. Demonic and Momentum, and it doesn't seem like it has changed now. I don't know how that's going to be 9.2, but if that takes away from, if it makes like one cookie cutter build again, then Havoc's gonna drop for me.
Not touching? That's what you're saying?
No, Havoc right now is an alt.
Keeping it on an alt. Okay, Red Paladin, for me, it's basically like the final decision. It's back to the...
have you actually decided?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're maining red.
This is the main thing.
Oh, really?
Red is back on the table. This is going to be my main.
But not, you haven't actually...
It is going to be my main for 9.2.
Oh, shit.
Yes, that's it. Red Paladin.
Oh, shit.
So this is the thing. I've mained Red Paladin almost all my life, except Shadowlands. This is the only expansion I haven't mained it, weirdly enough. And I want to get back to it because I always loved the spec with all its faults and whatever. It's just something that is very dear and near to my heart. And also, another factor that contributed to this is actually the tier set bonus. As opposed to Flame, I am looking at what bonuses we get because they are addressing things and changing playstyle. And Red is going to have a little bit of a change in playstyle with the tier bonus. Granted, there's some couple of things that still need to be worked on over there, like the Seraphim proc from the 2-piece.
Yeah,
that's only 2 seconds.
A bit weird.
Yeah, everybody's talking about this and feedback. And so the thing that is most exciting for me is that the Art of War will have a chance to proc Wake of Ashes.
Yeah, that was really cool. I have to admit.
Oh man, I cannot wait to get into
slap
that.
Wake of Ashes left and right. That's gonna be really cool.
Yeah,
I have to admit that the red tier set has been one of the tier sets that actually enticed me to play because red for me would have normally been a potential main or close to an alt because I kind of always dabble a little bit into red since I play Prop Paladin a lot. But red always felt like it missed something key for me, which I wasn't really. I'm not a fan of red being immobile and squishy. If it was a little bit tankier, I could definitely see myself because that's the fantasy that I like about DK. Is that DK is also immobile, but man, it can like ignore mechanics, and that's pretty cool. And sure, you have Divine Shield, but that's like once in a blue moon. But yeah, red for me would have been at least a potential main that I actually considered maining this pack, and I'm kind of still considering it because I just love playing prod, but it's kind of hard to play red just so I can play prod in dungeons.
How cool would it be for us to come with both?
That would be very
the Red Brothers, you know, like the famous band with lights and shit. It's gonna be amazing.
Do you know how fucking frustrating it would be for one of us to get the tier bonus before the other?
Fuck it,
and then you would wait like 2 more weeks.
You'd
get a fucking bonus and after wait like another month, like, oh my god,
No, but this is why I placed it in front of all the lists because for me this is the final decision. So it's clear. Now all of these, you know, we can talk about it and debate. Okay, it's either that or the other. But red.
Well, it's nice that you decided. I'm still going in back and forth between the 3 classes that I've decided to main. Well, the 3 specs would be red, arms, or survival. And I'm leaning more towards arms, but I haven't made my decision. But I'll still be able to play all of them by the time 9.2 releases. And if I change my mind, I change my mind. But that's how it is.
What about Shadow Priest? Definitely.
Shadow Priest, I have played it a whole bunch. If it's an alt for you, it was a potential main for me. So for me, it's like a potential alt, I would say. I've played Shadow. I really loved the Mind Games playstyle. Mind Games is the coolest spell I feel like that I could cast as a priest to begin with, and it felt really chunky. I love the single target of Shadow. The fact that Surrender to Madness is no longer a thing kind of bums me out because that's one of the coolest fantasies that I feel Shadow has.
Okay, so potential alt. It's weird because you said you put a preset in potential main.
Yeah, well, I was actually for a good amount of time I was actually considering maining Shadow because it's just another difficult spec to play. But as opposed to Survival, which was also a difficult spec to play, it didn't feel like it rewarded me. It still felt awkward. It still felt like whatever I did, it was a little bit up in the air as to what the best performance or best playstyle would be. It wasn't as straightforward as I feel like it's a little bit more difficult than Survival, maybe a lot more difficult than Survival. So
okay, let's keep it in potential alt then, because there's I'm looking at the list and there's a lot of things we have to get through to have all of these main alts and main specs. All right, Subtlety Rogue for me it's definitely an alt, and if you're gonna try Rogue, you're gonna have to try Subtlety.
Oh yeah, you know, we've been talking about this. I've played the sub in the beta of the Shadowlands, and I was pretty sure that it's gonna be my main until they made some couple of changes that I didn't particularly enjoy. I've played it when they added. I think it was before Black Powder. I don't know what it was before because they kind of changed it a lot. In beta, and that was actually really fun. I played with the Mark of the Assassin. That was really cool.
That was broken, man.
Coming out of style. Oh, okay, fair enough. They could tune the numbers on, but I felt like that would be a really cool playstyle, and I loved it. For me, sub would be a potential main. The same argument as Assassination. I don't see why I wouldn't be playing both if I mained any rogue spec. Well, any of the 2 rogue specs, because Outlaw would always be a little bit lower for me.
Yeah. Well, I would say because if it is a potential main, and if you're gonna start playing rogue, I think both of them are gonna be in the alt, because you're gonna main some of this, right? So when you're gonna alt any of the rogue specs, it's definitely gonna be either Assassination or sub, and you better play sub. All right. Now, Unholy DK, similar story.
Unholy is an alt for me.
Potential alt for sure. Yeah,
alt,
for me too.
Alt, bump it up to alt next to sub.
Oh!
Unholy is always an alt for me, mostly because I also like blood, and if I'd ever choose the DPS as a DK, I would always DPS as an Unholy. It's very good. It's, again, one of the better DPS specs. It just scales very weirdly, which I'm a little bit concerned about. I don't know how that's going to translate to 9.2, because, you know, it's always up in the air. But in terms of, like, core design, I feel like Unholy has the potential to become a main, because you have all sorts of cooldowns. The playstyle always revolves around timing your cooldowns. You always have them up. Pretty much everything in the Unholy kit gets reduced the more you play, so you don't have a fixed cooldown, which means the combat is very fluid, and it's also at the same time very versatile. It kind of always changes, right?
Yeah.
So
it's one of the strongest appeals of the Unholy DKs, having access pretty much almost all the time to a major cooldown. So definitely, and I'm still waiting for the days of BFA to come back, where you just would explode.
The bursting swords was
man.
a really cool mechanic, and I'm kind of bummed that they took it away, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, now Windwalker is definitely a spec that we both love, and it could have well enough been in the race for mains. However, the fact that it wasn't like super strong in single target this time around, I haven't checked the tier set bonuses yet for it. AoE, it was and it is right now a dominating force. Granted, you know, Necrolords and stuff. I would not put it in a main, because I said I want to play my red, but definitely an alt for me. What about you?
For me, it would be a potential main. I feel like I definitely see myself playing Windwalker in dungeons. It's really fun in AoE. I feel like they don't particularly, like the way that the Windwalker is designed doesn't feel like it's designed to slap bosses. It feels like it's designed to slap like a whole bunch of people at once.
The bosses
with the Fist of Fury and
groupies.
Yeah, like Rising Sun King is the only thing that comes to mind. And sure, that's pretty cool. And when it hits and it chunks and it hits, and that's actually pretty cool. But that's like very rarely. It doesn't have like a personality or like designed to slap single target. But pretty much everything that it has that hits really hard is AoE.
True, but if it were to be a potential main, would it be in front of the demo?
It would be
Elemental
in front of Assassination.
Ooh. It's pretty punishing, man. I would have seen him more in front.
Put it in alt, man. If you want to alt it, that's
no, it's too much, because before Windwalker, I would. So if I'm gonna main red, and I am going to main red, you know, I still have my warrior, my feral, my mage, my sub rogue, and there's a lot of them there. So probably Windwalker is gonna take the game. But this is it, okay? This is the final list for 9.2 mains. Things can change. Again, we have to make this disclaimer once again. So for a couple of the specs here, if from the potential alt section, they change something to the tuning, to the tier sets or whatever, and they also make some changes or tuning to the mains here that transform into something less desirable to play, then we can flip this around. This is where we have the potential main thing. But so far, for me at least, whatever happens, Red Paladin will be the 9.2 main. For Flame,
for me, it's gonna be a tight race between Survival, Arms, and Red. because I like the main specs, and these are the very few classes that I like almost all of the off specs. I've been a big Holy Paladin fan, and obviously Prop Paladin has been kicking it really hard for me, as well as, you know, BM, Marksman, Prod, and Fury, which is why Warrior has also 2 specs out there, just because they're very similar in terms of the gear that they want. And the last time that I've mained Warrior was Fury back in Antaurus, and I love the tier set back then. I've gotten I've gotten all of my last raid curves with Warrior before we went into BFA, both in WoD and in Legion. So Warrior was always my main until I kind of dabbled into other specs and classes as well. So it would be kind of fun to get back into it and see exactly how it is after all these years.
Yeah, well, hopefully this I would say thought process we had here helps you in deciding on what to main. Do take all of this with a grain of salt, because there's still things to be tuned and changed on the PTR. We've kind of discussed that probably the 9.2 release date will be somewhere around the end of February, maybe the beginning of March, who knows. So there's still a lot of time for things to change up, you know, especially with the damage auras and the tier sets and all of that. You have to remember we're also going to have to we're going to be able to equip 2 legendaries, you know, one general and another one that's from the Covenant. So there's a lot of things here, but from now,
for sure.
Looking at this list, basically the main picture is this. Okay, so again, we're kind of like leaning into the melee bias here, although, you know, I do have my Frost Mage over there, who knows. But yeah, this is pretty much it.
It's pretty conclusive. So, you know, we are always interested to know what you guys decided to main. If you already decided, you can let us know in the comments. And listen, if you haven't decided yet, you can also check our Patreon page. Because the Patreon, that's I really thought about it. I think it's really good. The Patreon platform is really supporting a lot of the content, and pretty much actually all of the content that you see right here. Since YouTube is a little bit wonky, we kind of do rely a little bit on the Patreon as well, and we do have a couple of projects coming soon, specifically supported by the Patrons, and we'll be really grateful if you decided to take a part of it and support us the content a little bit more. It definitely helps us out. But you can also check it just to see if there's something for you. We have a lot of tiers with a lot of goodies that you might be interested in, and hey, if it's not for you, it's not for you, it's not required, but we definitely appreciate it.
You want a wallpaper? You want to get into the chat, you know, see how videos are done and stuff, see the bloopers, all of that, check it in the description.
Nice sales skills.
And thank you for watching the video. Thank you, Patrons, for supporting. Let us know in the comments what you have decided on. And we'll see you Sunday with a guy.
Next one.
Bye.
Yeah.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.